Being a Sonic fan is nothing short of interesting. No matter the era, there's always something going on within this franchise. We have some lows that almost every single person watching this video is probably aware of. But right now, I wanna say that Sonic is in a very good spot. So good in fact that now fans are complaining that we have good and competent writers. Maybe we don't deserve the bad stuff that happens to us. But yeah, Sonic is not in a bad spot right now. Not perfect, but not awful by any means. It feels that nowadays the series has been trying to fix many of its past mistakes, like destroying the flanderization of its own characters, stop treating its fandom like idiots, even if some of them kinda are, and now they're actually putting real effort in their games, both gameplay and story-wise. It's as if they wanna bring back that edge that attracts so many of us during the 2000s. But among all these great efforts to clean their own image, there's always been one particular thing that felt out of reach: fixing Shadow the Hedgehog. This is a character that needs no introduction within the fanbase. Shadow is an icon of the series for better or worse. In my own personal opinion, which I also share with my own roommate who will help me on this video, Shadow is a character that earned all the praise he used to get in the past. But come the 2010s and SEGA turned him into an absolute laughingstock, completely disrespecting and misunderstanding what made this character so beloved in the first place. It was a thing so bad that once again, in my eyes, made me just not like him anymore. But now things are changing, and I can confidently say that Shadow the Hedgehog is slowly coming back to how he used to be, and I mean that in the best possible ways. But to understand that, I think we need to go through his history and analyze his goods, his bads, and his coolness.
I'm the coolest.
Shadow the Hedgehog first debuted in the widely beloved Sonic Adventure 2. After Dr. Eggman woke him up from a deep slumber, Shadow promises the Doctor to help him take over the world. This will be achieved by gathering the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which will be used to power up a weapon called the Eclipse Cannon, located in the Space Colony Ark. In reality, Shadow wants to use this weapon to wipe out all life on Earth, and eventually we find the reason as to why. Shadow was born in the Ark 50 years ago, being developed as the ultimate lifeform by his creator Gerald Robotnik, and live alongside his granddaughter Maria Robotnik, who, yes, are relatives of Dr. Eggman. Shadow became very fond of these two people, especially Maria, whose role was to teach him the beauty of life itself. However, eventually the government grew too frightened of this ultimate lifeform project, and sent the military gun to put an end to everyone on board of the Ark, which, yes, that includes the little girl.
Maria!
Eventually Eggman gathers the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which unbeknownst by everyone, triggers a sequence that will cause the Ark to crash on Earth, and everyone except Shadow works together to put a stop to this. But thanks to an interaction with Amy and reflecting on his past, Shadow is able to remember Maria's true wish, in which she wants Shadow to give all living beings an opportunity to live. Motivated by that promise and a new desire to protect life, Shadow sets out to help the rest of the cast to stop the Ark. Shadow dukes it out with the Bio-Lizard, the prototype of the ultimate lifeform, and together with Sonic, they enter their super forms and fight the fused Bio-Lizard once again in an incredibly epic battle and teleport the Ark back to space. However, drained from this experience, Shadow is unable to make it back to the space colony, and plummets back to Earth where he seemingly dies, ending the game. It is my belief that if Shadow had been a one-time character and never came back ever again, he would have been remembered as the best character in the whole franchise. What I just gave you was a brief summary of the entire Sonic Adventure 2 story, but it is filled with so many details and moments that really make you appreciate Shadow as a whole. But on top of that, it's his entire personality that makes him so endearing. In SA2, Shadow is a person who understandably still suffers from his past and is motivated by a desire of revenge. But even so, he still manages to be entertaining, sympathetic, and so damn cool. How he pulls the strings behind Eggman's back, how much banter he has with Rouge, and his rivalry with Sonic is such a delight to look at. And of course, him sacrificing his life to save the Earth is an amazing and emotional conclusion to his story. This single game alone made Shadow an extremely popular face among fans. But then releases Sonic Heroes and we come to a huge revelation. Shadow survived, or so it seems. It all starts when Rouge infiltrates an Eggman laboratory and finds the supposedly deceased Shadow.
Hey, Sonic! Is that Shadow with you? Yeah. Isn't he dead? Long story. He's better now. Cool!
This is when he teams up with Rouge and a rogue robot named Omega to form Team Dark, people who will become very special for Shadow down the line. Throughout the course of the game, Team Dark isn't just hunting down Dr. Eggman, but also try to find the truth on Shadow's mysterious survival, which at the end, it is heavily implied that the Shadow we just played as was nothing more than an android, a mystery that will kinda be answered in the next game. On my end, I think that Sonic Heroes' greatest strength in relation to Shadow is how it builds his relationships with Team Dark. Rouge, Omega, and Shadow have a lot of fantastic dialogue and great chemistry. The coolest part is that these three characters are known for not trusting others very easily, but they have a very fun found family dynamic which has been explored in other media such as the Archie comics. They really care for each other and it is always a treat to see the three of them together. Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, is among one of the most divisive titles in the franchise. Some people love the gunplay and the branching paths, while others hate the mission objectives and the fact that you have to beat the game 10 different times to get the true ending. And I honestly think that's valid. Shadow the Hedgehog opens up with Shadow reminiscing about his past, when he's approached by an alien creature called Black Doom, leader of the Black Arms, who requests him to gather the 7 Chaos Emeralds. And how you do that depends entirely on the paths you take, all with different outcomes. You can make Shadow believe he's an android, make him side with the Black Arms and destroy the Earth, or go full hero only to be a dick to Sonic at the last possible second. That one is always funny.
Shadow, why are you siding with those black creatures? Siding with them? You're joking, right? I'm just siding with whoever goes up against you.
But the thing is, regardless of what path you take, that doesn't matter at all. Cause once you get the 10 endings, you unlock one last story where Shadow canonically fights Black Doom and destroys the Black Arms. Shadow the Hedgehog, ironically, is a very mixed bag on how it treats Shadow's character, because you can make him betray Maria's memory, which is something he will never do. And of course, the game is known for being extremely edgy, which also includes Shadow himself.
This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
The only important things you get out of this game are that A. Shadow was created by using Black Doom's DNA, which naturally makes him part of the Black Arms. B. Shadow finally manages to move away from his past and lives by his own code. And C. In an optional conversation, you find out that Dr. Eggman saved Shadow after his fall in SA2. So yes, this is a real Shadow and not an android. Moving on, we have Sonic 06. Now, there's many things to be said about this game. Most might be bad, but despite the reputation this game has gotten through the years, we will argue that Sonic 06 has one of the best characterizations of Shadow in the whole franchise. It's a lot of twists and turns that will keep us here all day talking about it. So I'll just say what's so incredible about this incarnation of Shadow. This is a Shadow that has finally moved on. He found the truth about his origins and who he really is, and now fights to protect the Earth in his own way. Throughout the story, however, he meets Mephiles the Dark, who constantly tries to make Shadow join his side, as he gets to show him a doomed future, but also reveals to him that humans will eventually grow to fear Shadow, betray him, and seal him away, going as far as using his own friend Omega to achieve that. And despite all of Mephiles' efforts at different points of the game, Shadow never breaks, which shows his amazing development throughout the years and delivers incredible moment after incredible moment, with the best of them all being this iconic quote.
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.
Sonic 06 may be often considered the worst game in the series, but even the most passionate fans can find a diamond in the rough, and Shadow's characterization is one of those, easily among the best in the series.
I'm Shadow, Shadow the Hedgehog.
God, he's so damn cool!
One last thing we have to mention is Shadow's portrayal in the handheld spin-off titles, namely the Sonic Rivals series and, more importantly, Sonic Battle. Despite coming out later, I'm going to talk about the former first, since I have much more to say about the latter. The stories of the Rivals games aren't that important to Shadow's character arc, so I won't bother to summarize their events, but there's some really great character interactions in them that show Shadow's fun and competitive side from SA2 and Heroes is still alive and well. They also build on his pre-existing relationships with Rouge and Eggman while giving him a brand new dynamic with Metal Sonic that, at least to me, feels like an attempt to follow up on Team Dark choosing to spare him at the end of Sonic Heroes. I really like this scene from Rivals 1 in particular, as it shows that while the events of Sonic 06 may have been erased from the timeline, the growth Shadow went through has not been forgotten. Now, as for Sonic Battle, holy shit. This is one of the most slept on games in the entire series. I could talk about it all day. But even when strictly speaking on how it utilizes Shadow, there's so much to dig into. I genuinely believe that this is the only game that rivals 06's portrayal of him, and some days, I even think it surpasses it. But enough preamble. It's time to get into just why Shadow is so good here. The plot of Sonic Battle revolves around Emerald, an ancient battle robot known as a Gizoid that has the unique ability to copy the techniques of others, as well as grow exponentially more powerful every time he absorbs a Chaos Emerald. What makes this so important to Shadow is that Gerald Robotnik conducted research on Emerald at the same time he was working on Project Shadow, intrinsically tying the two's fates together. The game creates countless parallels between Shadow and Emerald, from their connections to Gerald, links to ancient civilizations, and most notably, the fact that they're both referred to as the ultimate life form. As the game goes on, Shadow's disdain for Emerald slowly reveals itself to be projection of the guilt and regret he feels over his actions in SA2. It's only thanks to Rouge's support, reminding him that he fulfilled Maria and Gerald's wishes and became more than just a weapon, that Shadow finds the conviction to let go of his self-loathing, take a gamble, and give Emerald the chance to bring hope to humanity. Which makes it all the more tragic when Emerald ultimately succumbs to his programming and has to be destroyed. It's genuinely one of, if not the saddest moment in any Sonic game, and a big part of the reason why is just how vulnerable Shadow is. Shadow, the fearless Shadow the Hedgehog, is unable to bring himself to fight the closest thing he has left to family, despite that being exactly what he set out to do at the start of the game. The only other time he ever came this close to losing confidence in himself was when Sonic died in Sonic 06. We've never seen his character brought to an emotional low like this before, and we wouldn't see this side of him explored again until very recently.
Shadow became an icon in his inception, and despite a few bumps along the way, he still managed to grow, develop, and be awesome at the same time through different games. But come the 2010s, and all of that awesomeness was thrown out of the window, because after the 2000s, the Shadow we knew and loved went away, and for a long time, it felt like we were never going to get him back. So, what happened? The 2010s was an era in which Sonic writing took an awful hit. Not only were we being bombarded with baby tear stories, but a lot of characters were completely flanderized. Knuckles was nothing more than a stupid meathead, Amy was a crazy obsessive over Sonic, Tails was just a smart sidekick, all while completely disregarding their development from previous games. But on top of that, during the 2010s, the Sonic fanbase became extremely vocal of the franchise as a whole. Hey, isn't it stupid that a cartoon Hedgehog fights Eldritch gods? Remember that one time they gave Shadow a gun and made him swear? Man, Sonic's friends are stupid, nobody likes them! Wow, did you guys know Sonic had a rough transition to 3D? Which is so stupid because when people used to say that, they proceeded to show you two of the greatest games ever created! Because of this, SEGA embraced the reputation that Sonic had at the time, often engaging in a lot of self-deprecating humor. This, of course, made Shadow a prime target of mockery by both fans and SEGA alike, being reduced as nothing more than an edgelord who tries so hard to be cool and swears a lot. And I mean, yeah, Shadow is edgy, that is undeniable, that is part of the appeal. But as we just saw, he's much more than just out the edge, and SEGA completely misunderstood that during the 2010s. To be fair, he didn't have a lot of presence throughout those 10 years, but let's see what Shadow did all this time. Sonic Generations. Sonic, this time I will destroy you. Oh, okay, sure, whatever. It's a cool boss fight, but like, we're kinda trying to fix time here, my dude. Sonic Forces. Should have hired some defense squads for the defense squad, Doctor. God, you know the writers patted each other in the back for that line. I will admit though, it is kinda funny that Shadow beat Infinite so bad and called him weak once that it made him lose his mind. Sonic Boom. Sonic, you're weak, and you know why? Because you have friends! Like, I know this is Sonic Boom we're talking about and isn't meant to be taken seriously, but this isn't even funny, it's just embarrassing. Like, why is Shadow even here? He only had like 2 minutes total of screen time. They didn't even know what to do with him.
And finally, we have the IDW comics, where Shadow plays a prominent role in a few arcs. And God, he's just the worst! At least, he was at the start. That's not to say the IDW comics themselves are bad. Far from it, in fact. We get tons of creative new storylines that you'd never see in the games, underutilized characters getting more time in the spotlight, and tons of new characters that have already won the hearts of Sonic fans all over the world. However, the comic isn't without its flaws, and one of the biggest things that holds it back, especially early on, are the SEGA mandates. You see, the Archie Sonic comics, for better and for worse, had a lot more freedom with what they were allowed to write, but as the years went on, SEGA, understandably, became more protective of their IP, and with the IDW comics being canon to the games, that led to SEGA becoming even more rigid with their guidelines, which is how we wound up with what are now commonly referred to by fans as the SEGA mandates. These include things like Sonic not being allowed to appear overly emotional, no explicit depictions of romantic relationships, the heroes always having to win at the end of an arc, and, oddly enough, male non-human characters being forbidden from wearing pants. Huh. Look, I could argue back and forth on the validity of these for hours, but the reason why this is relevant to the video is because Shadow, for whatever reason, had the most restrictions out of any character in the Sonic franchise. While we don't know exactly what Shadow's mandates entailed, all it takes is reading the first few arcs of the IDW comics to get an idea of the direction SEGA wanted to take him in. Vegeta. They wanted him to be Vegeta. Now, Shadow was always inspired in part by Vegeta, but here it's like all of his unique and positive traits have been stripped away, leaving him a hollow husk of his former self that only exists to be an antagonistic rival to Sonic. He's joyless, arrogant, rude, damn near impossible to reason with, and sometimes just downright stupid. I'm not saying Shadow should be buddy-buddy with Sonic or anything, but these two are supposed to have a mutual respect for each other. At the start of IDW, Shadow acts like he hates him. And even if I could tolerate that, you're gonna have him refuse to save innocent people and be a dick to Rouge in the same issue? Hell no, man. That's not Shadow the Hedgehog. He's an anti-hero, sure, but the emphasis there is on hero. Shadow was somehow more personable in Sonic Adventure 2 than he was in early IDW, and he was actively trying to destroy all of humanity in that game. And this isn't for a lack of trying, either. The writers of both Sonic Prime and Sonic Boom have expressed just how difficult it was to include Shadow in their shows because of how strict SEGA's guidelines were. And it got to the point where Ian Flynn said that he felt less inclined to even want to write issues with Shadow in them until the day came that SEGA loosened their grip on him. But thankfully, that day did eventually come.
It's hard to tell what exactly happened, but it seems that for the past few years, Sonic has shown a genuine rise in quality. Sure, not everything has been a mind-blowing experience, and some other things have been a bit mixed among fans. But really, when is everyone truly satisfied in this series? For me, one of the best things that has been happening in recent times is how SEGA is finally starting to treat its characters like actual characters. Yeah, it sounds silly, but all it takes is to compare Sonic Frontiers with anything from the 2010s and you'll notice the difference right away. Frontiers has a lot of fantastic character interactions, from Tails reflecting on his self-worth and past mistakes, Knuckles thinking about his lonely life and duty as a guardian, or Amy's kindness shining through and through by helping the Coco, with her crush on Sonic, while present, still taking a huge step back. You know, you can say whatever you want about Sonic Frontiers, be it good or bad, but if you were to say that the characters suck in this game, that's when I know you're a goddamn liar. And it isn't just Sonic Frontiers, it feels like the Sonic universe as a whole is embracing once again that cool edginess it used to have in the past. It's as if SEGA is loosening the grip on their own mandates, and for one, I am really happy about that. And once again, if we have to point out a great example, that's none other than Shadow himself. It all started with the release of Sonic Prime. Made a show, it's not the worst, but it's just alright. But when we talk about Shadow the Hedgehog in this show, damn, he's the absolute best! And you wanna know why? He's not just a lonely edgelord, he's an actual character that reflects everything that made him so cool in the first place. And if you were to analyze his behavior, his decisions, and his actions, it all makes a lot of sense. Does he lose his patience fast? Yeah, but that's because in Prime, Sonic is constantly acting like a jackass. Is Shadow really pissed off in this show? Sure, but it makes sense since it's Sonic's fault that the entire universe was shattered because he acted so recklessly. And if Shadow wanted to solve everything on his own at the beginning, that's also reasonable because again, he doesn't trust Sonic during the first episodes. Him putting aside their differences to fix the universe isn't just a matter of pride. He's reasonable enough to understand that working with Sonic is the best course of action. Shadow is easily the best part about this show. Every episode that involves him is incredible, so it's such a shame that he's mostly out of commission through all 3 seasons. But when he shows up, man, he'll make sure you won't forget him.
Then, like I hinted at earlier, even IDW's depiction of Shadow improved. And sure enough, Shadow's next appearance in the comic was his best one by a mile. There wasn't a drastic change in his personality or anything, but not only do we finally get to see him working together with Team Dark again, but he's the MVP of the entire arc! What makes Shadow's ego enjoyable is that it's a more pompous reflection of Sonic's, in the sense that he's so confident because he knows he can actually back up all the shit he talks, which he failed to live up to in earlier issues. But in the Eggperial City storyline, he's doing some of the coolest shit we've ever seen him do up until that point. After his embarrassing display in the Metal Virus arc, watching Shadow kick ass and prove that he deserves to be called the ultimate life form was some sorely needed catharsis.
You know, when Shadow Generations was first announced, normally I would have been very wary of such a concept. But after witnessing how good he was in Prime, it actually made me optimistic that they could deliver not just a great game, but an incredible Shadow representation. And as they showed more, the more excited I was getting. Especially when they released those Dark Beginnings animated shorts. Dude, they knew what they were doing. And the game itself did not disappoint at all.
Dark Beginnings and Shadow Generations are the best thing to happen to Shadow as a character in almost 20 years. I know that's not exactly a high bar given what we were saying about the 2010s, but I cannot undersell just how phenomenal both of these products are and how much they enrich his character. Dark Beginnings, on top of being the most visually impressive series of Sonic shorts yet, once again gives Team Dark some much needed time to shine together, but also gives us deeper insight into Shadow's experiences with Maria, Commander Abraham Tower, Emerald, and the Black Arms prior to the Ark incident. We even get a brief glimpse at his more vulnerable side, showing that just because he's found the conviction to put the past behind him doesn't mean it doesn't still affect him. We've only ever really seen that side of him before in Sonic Battle, like I mentioned earlier, so having it explored again after over 10 years of Shadow being a one-dimensional caricature was so damn good. As for Shadow Generations, it's not just one of the best Sonic games in years, it's debatably one of the best Sonic games ever! And a huge part of the reason why is because of just how well Ian Flynn and the other writers at Sonic Team handled Shadow in it. Not only is he raw as fuck in all of the mid-level and boss fight cinematics, seriously, you can really tell Sonic Team was putting all the money the movies and Frontiers made to work here, but he's done so much justice through his portrayal and interactions with the other characters. The importance of his bonds with Rouge and Omega are emphasized, he actually has friendly banter with Sonic, Hell, he even smiles when he sees Big the cat! I seriously had to do a double take when I saw that for the first time. But the best thing about how Shadow is written in Generations is that it's a rare example of character regression done right. While it can be really frustrating to see a character you like go back on their past development, trust me, the Sonic series is full of examples of that. With Shadow, it's done intentionally and tastefully. He's doing his best to honor his conviction and leave the past behind, but when he's forced to come face to face with it, it's easier said than done. Seeing Shadow struggle to stay true to himself and start to give in to his old violent tendencies, only to overcome it all thanks to the support of his loved ones, is really compelling stuff, and I damn near teared up at several moments near the end of the game. Literally the only flaw I can find with the writing, and the game as a whole really, is that there needed to be more of it. Still, in spite of its length, Shadow Generation still manages to be one of the best 3D Sonic games to date, and all my fears and worries of Shadow wasting away as a shell of his former self have vanished. The Shadow I know and love is back, and if they keep this up, he's gonna be even better than he ever was before.
It goes without saying that Shadow is being understood again by SEGA and the writers. I know each person has their own way of perceiving a character, but for me, and by extension Isaiah, here's what we think. Yes, Shadow is edgy, but he's also cool, you know? And that's the key difference here. He's not just a jerk who is a dick to everyone just because. There's rhyme and reason to his thoughts and actions, which have been shaped throughout his experiences in the series. He may not be body-body with Sonic, but there's clearly a mutual respect between both of them. And on the occasion they end up fighting, there's a real reason as to why they do that. Sonic Generations and Shadow Generations are the perfect examples on how to make these characters fight in the worst and best possible ways. In Sonic's campaign, as we already saw, he just shows up saying, "Sonic, this time I will destroy you," which... okay, we're kinda trying to save the world here, man, but alright, yeah, whatever. But in Shadow's campaign, it gives more context to this duel, as both Sonic and Shadow need to use the yellow Chaos Emerald, and while none of them will bend the knee to the other, they took it out in a fight. Okay, that's in character and makes sense as to why they will battle. And not just that, despite his values and duty, Shadow clearly enjoys the banter he has with others. He still cares about his friends in his own unique way. He obviously relishes in duking it out with Sonic, and of course, he wants to look cool in the process. That is what Shadow is to us.